Hey everybody, I'm here for a video again. I literally just finished reading Henry Sugar, like at the wire, so I decided that a video would probably be the best, but I think it works well for the assignment anyways. We're talking about structure this week, which is really good for Henry Sugar because it has some interesting playing with configure time and things of that are a little bit difficult to do in shorter stories, and it works really well here. And Roald Dahl is amazing, so that's awesome. So the first question asks about the structure and organization and how the story unfolds. So at first we meet Henry Sugar, and he's kind of like a socialite playboy, like a type of guy that you wouldn't really be interested in hanging out with because he's got a lot of money. Goes into one of his friend's libraries and finds a book that was written by a doctor who met this guy named Imrat Khan, who learned how to be a yogi and used his training to kind of have a sideshow sort of with conjuring and a really cool trick that was that he could see without his eyes. So, he went to doctors and made them bandage his eyes so that people trusted him and all that kind of stuff. And then was able to see without his eyes. And as the story unfolds, and now we're away from Henry Sugar and into the story he's reading while he's in the library, we find out that the way that Imrat Khan learned how to do this was by practicing yoga and basically becoming a yogi. But there's a lot of timelines when it comes to not like away from Henry Sugar. They're even inside the book. There's Imran Khan's, growing up, how he learned to be a yogi, how he tracked down one yogi and was sent to another one, and then how he used his gifts since then. So that's one timeline apart from the timeline of Henry Sugar when he's in the library reading the book. And then after we, find out that Imrat Khan dies at the end of what the doctor had written, then we go back to Henry Sugar. And there's even, I mean, not more timelines, but another stretch of Henry trying to use the things that he learned from the book to become a yogi, I guess, but he didn't look at it that way, but to rip off casinos because he thought he could learn how to read cards the same way that Imrat Khan sort of did, although he used it, for other reasons. But there's a lot of time spanned because, in the book, Imrat Khan is in the 30s and then Henry Sugar is later, and then he does that for, I think, 16, 20 years, as they said. So it spans a huge amount of time, but not all you don't hear everything. It skips a lot, which is really nice. My cat decided that she doesn't want me talking. Stop. So I think that Roald Dahl tells it this way because it keeps us engaged. I mean, we can't know every little bit of why, Imrat Khan does everything that he does and how he becomes a yogi and how many years it takes and then what he does with it. And we can't know all of the casinos that Henry Sugar has, you know, ripped off and all that kind of stuff. So I think that it serves well because he goes from one timeline to another. So we're in Henry's, you know, time frame and we see him and we don't really like him and then we meet Imran Khan and he's really cool, but he's not using the gift of the yogi in the right way either and he ends up dying and then we go back to Henry and it's a long span of the book where we get really into this guy's story and then we have to remember we're going back to the other guy's story who we didn't really like in the beginning. So now, we're still not liking him and what he wants to do with the gift is not um, you know, good for humanity until he realizes that in fact I actually bought the book because I thought it was so interesting and oh, you can't see it. So I've got some other Roald Dahl that I can read now. But he said that it was slowly beginning to dawn upon Henry that nothing is any fun if you can get as much of it as you want, especially money. And another thing, was it not possible that the process he had gone through in order to acquire yoga powers had completely changed his outlook on life? So, the studying that he did the same way as Imran Khan did, although he didn't seem to use it in quite the altruistic way that Henry did, but from doing that, he actually became a better person and started, you know, ripping off casinos to save money to by orphanages. So it's pretty cool because Henry completely changed his persona from the beginning to the end, just from the significance of the book and what it taught him. So another question that we were asked is, the difference between what Dahl emphasizes and what he glosses over. And, in the beginning, he really emphasizes the type of guy that Henry is, which is interesting because I think that it colors who he is. So his change in the end is, really dramatic. But it does gloss over a lot with Imrat Khan too when it comes to, there's a lot of years that they span. Even in the book, Imrat spent years and years and years learning to hone these yogi skills, and you can't tell every single aspect of that. And then the same thing happens when Henry Sugar starts ripping off the casinos. We don't get to see all of the years and years and years that he does that, or like the specific stories of it. That also has to do with the narrator and the POV and that kind of stuff, but we're not talking about that this time. But he condenses some of the longer things and accentuates the more important things, like the practice and how they learn how to do it and the reason that each of them are doing it, and kind of what they benefit from. So the longer story is broader, in my opinion, than the shorter stories that we've read. I think that Dahl was able to give us a lot of timelines, like a lot of different configure times and a lot of different interesting ways of, putting Henry Sugar and Imrat Khan kind of juxtaposed against each other. It's kind of funny because, you get to like Imrat Khan and you don't like Henry Sugar, but in the end, Henry was actually the one that used his gift for something good, and that's means potentially why he didn't die from it the way that the other guy did. So I think that he really accentuates the reasoning and the things that they do with their gift, and kind of glosses over more of the long, stories. I mean, I'm sure that there could be thousands of stories of Henry using his gift in casinos and like, tons of poker games and blackjack games and things of that nature. But he doesn't have to say all of those things because the point is more about how Henry's changed as a person, from learning these yoga techniques, and isn't the guy that just wants money now. He wants to do something good with his money. Oh yeah, then the sorry, the other question was if he does more than the others, and I think that he does, and that's just probably a spatial issue. Although I think that the other stories that we've read, you know, dictate their space. I don't think that I could have read 30 pages of the crack cocaine diet or 30 pages of the one about the ghost in the grave, and I think that it's just it's what works for the story. But he was able to give us more dynamic characters and a more like a bigger time frame and different aspects of configure time and that sort of thing than some of our other stories were able to do. I wouldn't say Atwood. She has a really good way, and well, Atwood. Let's say Atwood. She has a really good way of making sure that we get the backstory as well as the current story in a way that she can jump time in a smaller space, but it wasn't as all encompassing as the Henry Sugar story was. It would have been kind of cool to learn more about the main character in the stone mattress when she was younger, but the thing is, she didn't need that. In this story, we need to know the whole story of Imrat Khan before we can understand like how Henry Sugar is doing what he's doing and why it's changed his point of view on the world. So I think that structurally he's different from most of them. He might be a little bit like Atwood because they do skip around in time frames, but other than that, he was able to pull off a little bit more than the others were able to do, since he had more space to do it. I mean, he didn't have more space. Any of them could have written that long of a story, but the story didn't need it. This one did. And structurally, I don't think he was a lot like any of them. I guess the chain a little bit because he was able to talk about longer spans of time, but he didn't have to go into detail like Roald Dahl did. So I think that they were pretty different, besides some similarities with Atwood. And then, of course, what we can learn from this story is so much. I love to do this kind of thing with my stories. I like to write historical fiction in general, so I do a lot of skipping around in time. I'll talk about one character in the present time, but then, their parents, I'll show their relationship 20 years ago or whatever. And I like that, and I think that it gives you, a really good balance between the two where you can see how people have changed over time. So I think that the structure that he used here is really cool. But the thing about it is he didn't show Henry. Well, he did. Okay, so he didn't show Henry. He showed Henry before he was reading the book and after he was reading the book, and he was still the same person at that point. Like, yes, the book made him have a great idea, but he wasn't the good person he became after years of studying and becoming the yogi. And then, trying out his skill and realizing that, you know, making all this money doesn't mean anything if you don't do something with it. So it's really cool how he showed how Henry changed so quickly. And then, I think that the structure of having a book read in the middle of more of a expositional story is really cool too. It's not something that's easy to pull off because it's a lot of just straight dialogue because it was the doctor, saying exactly what Imrat Khan was saying to him. So it was a really cool structure. I don't know if it's something that I would be tempted to try because Roald Dahl is a master. But it was really interesting to read and to kind of get ideas from for, my own stories. So I like the structure. I think the length worked well for it. And I think it's definitely different than anything we've read. So I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Sorry I went on such a long video. I'm kind of rambling a little bit. But it was a long story and structure is a really important part of our stories. So hopefully we all got something great out of it. Have a good night, guys. Thanks for reading my story this week, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.